Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. We got a busy week, our third episode here. We welcome Matthew Levy to the show. Welcome to the Den. You are on mute.
Hey, thanks.
Now we're there. Good to have you on the Den. For those who don't know who you are, give a quick intro and let's get to it.
Yeah, sure. I'm Matthew Levy. I founded Results Management Group 23 years ago to guide executives, executive teams, owners, and families in business to growth, stability, and effective relationships in business.
I'm going to start with the most important question that you probably always get. How do you determine whether or not to use Matt or Matthew? I've struggled with this my whole entire life. Like when I first went into the business world, I used Matthew only. And I was like, no, Matt doesn't sound professional enough to me. And then when I did my own business, I just switched to Matt. It's like, and then when you find another Matt or Matthew, you're like, do I call him Matt? Do I call him Matthew? It's like, it's weird for me. Do you run into that?
I'm Matthew.
All right. How did you start? 23 years, long time to be doing this. How did you get into that? Why is that something that you wanted to do? And how did you become someone who's qualified for that?
Yeah, sure. So at the time I was running strategy for a division of Motorola in Latin America. The .com craze was happening. I was missing it. So I went up to New York and started consulting, coaching with entrepreneurs, and realized that the entrepreneurs I was working with, they knew what they wanted to do. They just couldn't agree with their partners and their teams on a path forward. So I let go of the strategy a little bit and looked more at alignment and what does it take to align a partnership, align a team to a vision, a strategy, objectives, a culture for how they want to run the company to create success. And then after a short time, I missed working with larger companies coming from Motorola, and I started working on bigger projects, bigger companies, bigger divisions of way bigger companies. And being that I was working with a lot of privately held companies, so many of them were families, I realized that my own challenging family background made me astutely qualified to work with the intricacies of family, bringing empathy and compassion and a nuanced perspective to the relationships when love and business come together. So with
your family background and struggles were business related?
Family business, divorce, dysfunction.
Yeah.
So I studied conflict resolution in college and then an MBA, then went off to Motorola and then spent the past 20 years exploring leadership and mindfulness and relatefulness and what it takes to create effective communication, effective intimacy, and resolve soft conflicts, meaning conflicts when the relationships still matter, in service of stable growing companies and families that are unified around stable growing businesses.
Well, that's an interesting point that you bring up, because I think, as I told you, that my wife is a mediator for family law, was a former magistrate judge in family law. And so that's at the point where you're ready to split. You're at this point where you're sort of mediating in a way when they want to try and find a path forward, even if they are going to eventually split, but find the path forward. It's a much different conversation, right?
It's a way different conversation. Mediation generally refers to what people do before and to avoid court in a trial. This is really just about negotiating relationships in business and in family. Like, what should the strategy of our company be? Or what is our vision? Or why are we in this business? Or why do we own this business together? Or do we want our children to work in the company, or do we want to sell it? Or do we want to hand it off to professionals and just earn the distributions?
Now, I imagine it happens more often than not, because you have stuff that gets passed down through whatever. It could be aging, right? It could be through death, whatever. It could be through divorce. And people, it's not that different than other companies also, that just sort of someone leaves and they just bring a new manager up who really maybe shouldn't be there. They're not qualified to be there, but they are there through whatever it is. And now we have to find out, how can we make this work?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I specialize is in transitions, both management transitions and ownership transitions. So that might be evolving a management team at a next level of leadership as a company grows, or it could be handing off the company to the next generation, retiring the uncles and the aunts and installing the siblings and the cousins to run a company.
Do you find that a lot of people don't, they are like kind of handed it? It's so a lot of movie stuff, like, I don't want to get into the family business, but they do anyway. Is that a big issue for what's going on with the people you deal with?
Everything happens. People have preferences, and we act in favor of our preferences.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
money does dictate a lot of our decisions, though.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
As does following one's passion.
Right.
And I'd rather be an artist or a doctor than a business person, or I want to be a marine biologist and receive distributions, or I want to be CEO. I don't think there's any normal other than the possibility for missed expectations, disagreements, and the opportunity to work that out and create greater intimacy.
How much of the problem is at the top, where people want to have the power? It's a power struggle. I want to be the CEO. I want to be the one making the decisions, and maybe there's someone else who thinks they should, or maybe there's someone else who thinks there's a better way for the company to operate.
Sure, authoritarian leadership is a thing, and so is distributed leadership.
Yeah, I when I was working for big companies, a big problem that I saw was that, and I mentioned a little bit before, is that someone would leave and they'd have to find a new manager, and ultimately they might want to hire from within, and so they'll promote someone to a management position who has no management experience. Now, that doesn't mean they can't be a good manager, but it's a struggle. There's a learning curve and all of that. And then they also don't have enough people. So they say, all right, well, you're going to manage this, this, and this, which maybe isn't their thing. That causes a lot of problems for the other people who have to operate in this business. There's some jealousy probably too. I didn't get the promotion. Maybe I start to have one foot out the door. Is that a big issue that you guys deal with? I mean, is there one specific thing that you deal with? Is it just, this is a family, we got to figure out how to, move forward?
Yeah, management transitions is challenging for some. Some people don't deal with change as well as others. Introducing a new person means a new team dynamic. It means impact on culture. It means new personal values and the opportunity to align those with company values. It also creates the opportunity to revisit team or company culture and to intentionally design elements of culture.
I don't watch a lot of this, but I've watched some episodes of what Marcus Lemonis does. Sometimes you come in, you evaluate. Is there a lot of like, we have to blow this whole thing up, or we're pretty close to where we need to be? There just has to be, it's the attitude, it's the way everyone's looking at it. Where on the spectrum is it with the companies that you work with? How much are like a total, we got to really rebuild this thing, and how much we're pretty close, but there's still some really tough challenges, but we're not as far as maybe everyone would think looking in at it?
My clients tend to be companies that are doing well and in some sort of challenge. Might be a strategic redirect, a new product launch, planning for or post-integrating a merger, some leadership changes, or just the need to align on next year's strategy. Every year that a company creates a new strategy is an opportunity to revisit culture. Last year's culture was perfect to get last year's results, but to get next year's results, something different about culture is needed.
You don't think that you can similarly have a culture that kind of exists for stretches, longer stretches?
Sure. And adapting and changing and growing.
Right, of course. Yeah.
Is necessary as strategy changes and growth demands change and market changes and client needs change and supplier situations change. So I don't believe a complete total revamp of a culture is possible, but changing out elements, a lot of elements intentionally by design is very effective.
When you first engage with your clients, do they have a good idea of what needs to be done and they don't know how to do it? Or is that you are really educating them on what needs to be done?
There's some of both. I mean, people come to me because they have something in mind. They have a need, they have a pain, they have a desire. And the beauty and the creativity is in the exploration about what else can be done and what else is possible that they didn't see.
What type of time frame are you talking about working with these companies? Obviously, everything's different, but is there
I've had clients,
goes or
I've had small clients that needed some kind of a tweak, and it was a several week kind of project. And I've had other clients that I've worked with for over 10 years over various iterations of strategic shift and governance changes, be it reestablishing trust and unity after a transition to the next generation, and then setting up a board of directors and separating that from the executive team, and then onboarding non-family executives, setting a new strategy, fortifying the board, and growing.
Some of it sounds like there's probably a lot of instances or amount of instances where people will bring like this to a legal front, like attorneys, if they feel they're getting the short end of a stick. Is that, do you face that, or is that not?
You're going back to conflict. I can't think of a situation where I've had clients turn soft conflict into lawsuits.
Okay.
I don't, my clients want to get along. They want to work things out. And then sometimes they don't. They separate the partnership and they buy each other out, or someone gets fired. But when people work with me, it's because they want to work it out. They want to work together. They want to be effective. And, there are times when people are looking to negotiate an amicable separation. But I'm not a lawyer. I don't deal with lawsuits.
Looking at the people that you are going to work with, are there instances where you say, I don't think this is going to work, I don't know that I can help you? Or do you believe with the strategy and the framework of what you do that everyone can come to a resolution?
Wow, there's a lot in there. So no, not everybody. Well, yeah, I guess until we die, and that's a different kind of resolution. Sometimes people can't work it out, and the best thing to do is separate.
Yeah. But you can help through that. So it's not like you would say no. You would say, let's try and figure it out, and then you maybe figure out that they should be separated, and then you work towards that.
Yeah, we figure it out.
Yeah. Is some of it therapy? I mean, is this like, I know we talk about some of the things like it's not like it's not therapy, but it feels like some of the work that you do, as I watched, some of the cases, that it's almost like therapy and getting people to really understand the situation and how they feel, or maybe look at it a different way than they have been, because sometimes we all have to look at something differently than what the shoes we're sitting in.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not a psychotherapist. I don't do therapy. Clients that work with me do report and show evidence of growth. They learn, they confront their beliefs, they become more open, loving, compassionate. Uh, their relationships get better, their self-awareness gets better, they find themselves more calm, often with less or no more anxiety. And when they get in touch with their passion, then depression also disappears. So there's lots of therapeutic outcomes, just like there is from swimming and running and playing with your kids and going to the amusement park, right? They're all good stuff comes from all of those too. Uh, this is definitely a structural, strategic venture, as well as a growth-oriented, interpersonal growth experience.
Now, I would argue that you don't actually have to love each other or have to have a good partnership, and if you have maybe the vision. So it sounds like the stuff that you don't agree with that, or maybe you do.
Can we work together and not love each other? Yeah, we can. And if we love each other, it's better.
Yeah. Well,
otherwise we're tolerating each other, right? And that has some challenges. And some people would like work to not be personal. Some people would like life to not be personal.
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of relationships that people have.
Sure.
I would just say that, we would all relationships or any type of partnerships would be better if there was mutual love and respect and all of that.
Sure. And if we downgrade from love, we can come to compassion, care, reverence, holding in positive regard, liking, respecting.
I think it's my feeling is it's more important to be respectful and treat people with kindness and human decency and all of that, rather than how you actually feel about someone. I think that's a big problem in the world. The bar isn't set very high, and yet I don't think people can hit that bar. That's just my view of the world, which sounds a little jaded, but I don't.
Sounds like what you're saying. Sounds like what you're saying is that you focus a lot on how you treat people and less on how you feel or how they feel.
I try to do it. I mean, I try and live by the golden rule myself. That's how I don't ask for anything I don't give in return. But I feel like I'm probably not the normal in the way that people feel and treat each other. I don't know.
I'm sure your perspective is a common one. I tend to spend a lot of time, or like to give a lot of attention to emotions as well as behaviors. And one acts in service of the other, and vice versa.
I mean, but would you say that most people are capable of acting with love and compassion and all of that? I mean, I think everyone probably has, not everyone, but the large majority of people have the ability to do it.
Yeah, I'm stuck on most people.
I mean,
I'm not sure really what the question is.
I would say more people than not. How about that? Are able to have the ability to act with compassion and act in the way that you would like them to with the business. But not everybody wants to. And then others, they might never want to. But they have the ability to. That's the other thing, is like, you have the ability. It's the difference between if you can't or you won't. A lot of people say they can't do something, but what they really mean is I won't do something.
Or I forgot how, or I'm scared, or I knew how and then they taught me not to.
Well, some of those are easy fixes, but there is a strict difference between, look, I know I can do it, but I'm just not going to do it. I got that. It's how Ticket Time Machine started. We go up to a counter and say, hey, can you print this? No, we can't print. We can't do that. And I'm like, well, I know you can do it because it's the industry I've been in for a long time. You just don't want to or won't do it. So I think there is a difference between that. And that's what I look at That's what I'm thinking. As you have people in the same room, they can do what you ask them to do, but some just won't, and that's probably where the conflict, becomes escalated, right?
Yeah, and what I ask people to do is way less important, and I don't ask a lot. What's more important is what people's family members ask of them, and what their team members ask of them, and what they ask of themselves. And I think you're speaking to something important, which is uh, what how we identify what we're capable of, and knowing that we're not all capable of the same thing, and we don't all want or need the same thing. Or we might all need the same thing, love, but we don't all know that we want it or don't actively want it. And that calls into it calls in parenting, right? I have a belief that almost all of us pop out of the womb as immersed in a sea of love, and then to different degrees our parents and the world teaches us not love, and then we act from not love.
Yeah, it's mostly taught or seen.
Yeah, we're all monkeys. We learn what we experience, and then as adults, we're acting out, playing out the unhealed wounds of our upbringing, or what we learned and didn't learn from our family and friends and colleagues, um, and the opportunity sometimes is to learn what we didn't learn and do it as an adult. And we get into a high stress situation like business or family conflict or family business or relationships and love. And I can't even count the number of marriages, romantic couples that I've worked with. When relationships get intense, that's the opportunity to learn and relearn what we didn't learn before, or take it to another level of authenticity and intimacy and love and compassion. And then we get more effective.
Do you find that a lot of the people, I'm trying to understand the breakdown between the amount of family businesses and relationship businesses that kind of were put upon someone, or they got into, not or the others that they decided, hey, I want to start a business with you, my partner. I want to start a family business because I love my family. We're very close. I would never be able to start a business with any of them, I don't think.
Yeah, I get it. It comes in all flavors, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes down from grandpa and great grandpa and great great grandpa and grandma, and people are starting new businesses with their spouses and siblings and cousins all the time. Yeah.
And even with the intention could be good, and you could still love each other, and really it's just it's this craziest of things could just happen, and all of a sudden now you got a hole in the dam.
Right. So we had this idea and we're doing it, and now what are we doing, and what do we really want, and how's this really going to work? And in a standard business, that's the opportunity to recreate vision and strategy and objectives and re-examine culture. And in a family business, it's the opportunity to do all the same, plus create a family business constitution or redo the family constitution, which is all about the family values and the family culture and what the family is looking for in this co-ownership venture, and how it wants the business to be a reflection of its values and desires. And then rules about how the business is to interact with the family and how family and members are to interact with the business.
Because
it's a really important component.
There's a sense of pride and accomplishment when it's your business, when it's your company, different than, hey, I'm the CEO of this company, and if I become not the CEO of this company, then I'm just going to move on and become CEO of another company, or I'll get a job at another company. So
I'm hearing what you're describing as the pride of ownership and the pride of and desire for enterprise control, wanting to be in charge of something, and wanting to be in charge of something that you own, as we both are.
I think there's also wanting to be a part of something. It doesn't always have to be the ownership. I mean, I happen to own, but
right.
It would also, there's things I'm a part of that I don't have ownership in, that I do have, I have pride in, of being, associated. I think people like to have that. It gives them, like, there's purpose. Like, why am I doing something? Is it money? Is it, I think I'm going to be doing good in the world? Am I think I'm going to be helping myself personally grow and all of that? I mean, there's a lot of reasons, and I can't fault anyone for doing something for any of those reasons. But there are different motives and reasons why people operate, why they have a job they do, why they start a business, whatever that might be. Is it important that everyone in there has the same motives? I mean, can I have a money motive and you have help the world, and then we have a third person in the family want to do personal growth? Can that work?
It's really interesting. Just like in any other relationship, the extent to which it works or doesn't work is a function of how well can I align with your values as well as mine.
How about if we're all on the same page?
Right? Like you could like hockey and your wife could like ballet, and that doesn't have to be a problem.
Yeah.
Until you want to stop each other from doing what you love, that doesn't work. And then going along with the other to do what they love is better, even if you don't love it yourself. So there's an opportunity for people to be themselves. We don't all have to be the same, and differences on a team and differences on a board of directors and differences in an ownership group is all useful. And can we discover what our common commitments are? And can we be authentic about which commitments we don't share, but which we can support?
Do you deal with companies, couples, families, relationships that want to get into something, and you're helping them and working with them before they get it or as they're getting into it?
Also.
Yeah. Is that a lot? I think it's important to do something like that to try and, it's almost like, going to, I say the word therapy, but going to therapy when there's not a problem. There's value to thinking about things before there's a problem, right? Trying to avoid these problems.
Yeah. Again, I don't look at it like therapy. I look at it as part of the entrepreneurial process, which is ideation and exploration of passion and skills. And when in a group looking for what do we want in common that we can go create together.
And as results management group and as Matthew Levy, two separate things, there's value. What's your idea on the value of going into business as a family and in a relationship?
I love family business. I love hearing about family business. I grew up around a family business. I loved being around the family business. I mean, even as a kid, I would just sit and watch people work and help out where I could, even if it was just cleaning windows. I was just happy to be part of it. And I hope that my business is a family business someday. And even when I see the families that I work with, some of them are in deep conflict. I think to myself, yeah, but at least they're together and they see each other every day. And they might need help to make big decisions. And they might find it difficult to discuss without yelling and screaming as an extreme. But at least they're in it together. How beautiful.
Well, I agree with that. I think it's, no, I do. But I also think one of the big issues we have in the world today is being able to have tough conversations and being able to do it civilly and fair and whatever. Because I talk about this all the time. Like, you and I can agree on the same thing and still have some pretty nasty arguments. And that happens so much. So imagine how difficult it is if like I'm here and you're here to have those conversations when we're aligned here and we can't even have those conversations.
Right.
That's a big issue, I think, with the world and the issues that we have today. And they all could be used with probably a lot of resolved with a lot of the same principles that you use.
I absolutely agree. And what you're speaking to is the closest thing to my heart, because it gets to how we interact with each other. We're human beings. We mostly interact through language. And our internal integrity, our honesty with ourselves, and our emotional state is what gives our language. And it also gives our ability to listen to each other generously, compassionately, openly. So the quality of our interaction, the quality of our communication, the quality of our speaking, and the intentionality of our listening and how we show up with each other is critically important and a part of all of our work. There's this strategy and governance background, and I've worked with startups to Fortune 500 companies for lots of years, but the core of this work and the core of being a human being is knowing ourselves, loving ourselves, and loving each other. And that mostly shows up in language.
It's I champion for mental health with an organization called Same Here, and a lot of it is just trying to keep the conversation moving forward, but also getting visibility to the issue, which is, we're fighting. There's 100 things that we could talk about and try and resolve that are not good. So it's getting the visibility and then acknowledging the problem and then keeping the conversation moving forward, whatever that is, and not just talking amongst the people who agree.
So I'm hearing a few things. I'm hearing you say you're giving importance to identifying what are the important conversations and decisions that need to be made. I'm also hearing the importance of keeping the conversation going, keeping things moving forward, not getting stuck.
Yeah, and to me, that's some of the most important things that we deal with when I talk about mental health, when we talk about a lot of things.
It's, being a human being.
Yeah,
it's
but
what we face every day, being a human being.
It's how
right.
we don't all
that's
act.
Life, isn't it?
Life
is focusing on what's important, keeping the conversation going.
But what's important
and then
to you
having
might
the
not
next
be important
conversation,
to me, right?
And then talking about that.
Yeah. Like what's important to you might not be important. It's what's so important to them, or it could be the levels of that you prioritize. That you could have the same 5 important things, but instead of 1 through 5, they have it 5 through 1, which I think that's an issue too. Again, we're all on the same page, but now we're trying to figure out how to move forward. What should we focus on first? And that could be a conversation. That also could be money. We all think that these 3 things are the most important in my business, and we have X amount of dollars, but I think we should attack this first, and you think you should attack that first. That's on the lower on that list. Is that a common?
People are different. We have different priorities.
Yeah.
You mentioned passion.
You mentioned something about being true to yourself and honest with yourself and really knowing. I pride myself on having a very good idea of who I am, my faults, the good stuff. And so it's important to be able to do that. And then also from there, be able to acknowledge that that's it. That's, being true to yourself, but also being honest with others about, who you are and what you feel like. How big of an issue is that when you're dealing with these people and your clients? That the people don't really know what they're like. They don't have a false sense of really who they are and what they, what they believe in and what's important to them.
Yeah, we all know ourselves really well, except where we don't. And as we get older, the opportunity is to learn to benefit from what other people see in us that we can't see in ourselves. And then expand our knowing of self.
How do you get to know yourself better? How do you think?
I could say how I do it.
Yeah.
A lot of meditation over the past 20 years is a beautiful technique for self-knowing. The other is having an intentional practice of presence and mindfulness to be aware of ourselves as we're speaking, both what we're saying, what we're thinking, and what we're feeling, and an awareness and also a curiosity for what other people are experiencing with us so that we can hear their feedback, both the feedback that we enjoy hearing and the feedback that we don't enjoy hearing.
You're very calm, the same way I'm pretty calm. Most people describe me as that. What gets you angry? What gets under your skin?
Wow, it's a Great question, and it feels vulnerable to answer. Um, my Achilles heel, what most irritates me is violence. Uh,
Okay.
Subtle violence, passive aggressive violence, and straightforward, outward, uh, uh, overt violence in all of its forms. And
Doesn't that's most people? I mean, I that would get me if I see
well,
violence. If I even see someone being mistreated, I get, riled up a little bit.
I can only speak for myself. That's what gets me, and I'm pretty sensitive to it, which probably serves me in terms of having a depth of empathy to do what I do, working in challenging situations and also big opportunities. When it gets hot in the kitchen and uh, uh, people are struggling to get the results and up to big things at big stakes and high risk, and also family when love is involved and the relationships really really matter. And uh, yeah, I don't tolerate violence well.
Not everyone could be in the kitchen when it gets hot. I'll give an example. I like to think I'm very compassionate and want to help people, but you get me in a hospital or an elderly home, and I can't do it. I can't be in that environment. It's just, there's personal stuff that happened. There's just stuff in general that gets me to that. So not everyone can be in those scenarios, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, everybody has their triggers, right? It goes back to our past, um, where the large or small traumas that we experienced when we were little that we couldn't fully feel and thus haven't yet released from our emotions and our psyche that still haunts us, um, or triggers us or is significant.
You got
And I can
20.
imagine that if you lost a loved one, that it would be hard to be in a nursing home. I've seen people that just can't be in hospitals. It just gives them the heebie-jeebies. They can't.
Yeah.
And for some reason, even though I lost my first elderly family member at 7 years old, I do feel comfortable in hospitals, and it doesn't make sense. But we all respond differently.
Yeah. For me, it's not the loss. It's what happened up to the loss. Watching them struggle and seeing other people struggle who I've never met before, but just seeing them, someone in a hospital with no family coming to visit. I go visit my grandma every day, and there's a lady there, didn't have a visitor in 2 months. Nobody came to see her. Stuff like that. It's just that's the stuff that kind of pulls at me and makes it more difficult for me to be around that.
Yeah. I, yeah.
So it,
my
so
heart goes out to you. It sounds like that was painful. And I hear that it still matters to you.
yeah, look,
I'm
there are.
also hearing the value of care for people that are sick and elderly, and the pain that you have in watching uh, when people that you cared about didn't receive the kind of attention you wanted them to.
Yeah, it's free. I see this stuff in the hospitals, and we were just talking about this. I think because I had Joe on from Williams syndrome. He deals with Williams syndrome. We talked about the shortage of nursing, and then you have these nurses who really probably shouldn't be nurses because they don't care enough. You're in a position that you shouldn't be in. Whether you have to get a job, you have to do it, and that maybe could be. I would think that
And
probably applies to families too. Again, going back to I was thrown into this. Someone died. Now I have this family. What this family business? What do we do with it? Or doing what you don't really want to do, maybe because someone expects you to do it. If that's a family member, maybe because there's a lot of money in it, and that's just the easy way out for you. That's a tough. I would think that's a tough way to go. Plenty of people cannot like their job, but to really not have the sort of the temperament for it and the ability to do it that would really weigh on me. I've had jobs I didn't like, but it wasn't like I was doing something that, oh my God, forget about it.
yeah, I'm hearing you exploring the various reasons that people go into a business, a family business, and then also the way in which the golden handcuffs can keep people in a business. I had a client once that was studying biology, and he wanted to be a marine biologist or a doctor, um, and marine biology. And his father told him he would pay him twice as much if he would come home and work in the family business, and he did it. But into his 70s, he always regretted not going into marine biology.
I think that's a lot about regrets. I mean, we all have regrets that we're trying to keep them to a minimum, and then also learning from mistakes. I think that's part of being growth as an individual, and also as a business, as an organization, as a family.
Sure. And other families encourage their kids to do whatever they want. And if no one wants to work in the business, they'll sell it, and they just want their kids to be happy. And, you can notice that both stance, come back to the city you grew up in and be with your family and work in the business is love. It's deep love. And go do whatever you want, be free and explore your passion is also an expression of deep love.
When you start to think about the work that you do, and the families that you're helping, and the businesses that you're helping, what's the biggest satisfaction you get out? You're done with a client and you look back at what you just did with them. What's the feeling that you have? What gives you the most satisfaction?
Yeah. I get a ton of satisfaction when people tell me they grew, and they tell me how they grew. And you can see those in the videos on the website. There's just some fantastic case studies and reports from clients. I also get really excited when people tell me they learned something in a coaching call or in a meeting, and then they tell me they went off and had one of the best conversations in their life because they were able to bring what was really important, to your point earlier, Matt, and they were able to do it authentically and vulnerably, and in a way that created safety and trust. I also get really excited when people tell me that they got what they wanted. They came for something and they got what they wanted, or they came thinking they wanted something, but that's not actually what they needed, and they got what they needed and more, and that's even better. When clients say, wow, I had no idea, I never thought my life could be this good, and I never thought I'd be able to accomplish this, and I never thought my relationships would be so great, and I have so much more intimacy than I ever had, and I used to be a jerk, and now people come to me with their problems and they leave with no problems, and I feel so close to my employees, my family, my kids, my wife, my colleagues, my clients. It gives me joy. I'm honored to be a part of it, and I have reverence for my clients that are willing to do the deep work and be vulnerable and rise to the challenge that they're setting for themselves and that their families or teammates are setting for them. I guess it's personal growth, and that started for me in high school in some leadership activities that I was involved with. And when I got to see the sparkle in someone's eye when they were learning something new and feeling the pride of the same, it's really rewarding for me.
Do you have a coach yourself, or someone that guides you through what you're doing to help you grow? How do you feel like you grow? And maybe that's just by doing what you do.
Yeah, I've had lots of mentors over the years, and I have people that I call when I want to work through something or talk through something or get some input. And I guess I grow a lot from just doing what I do. And
I would think
being in the work with my clients.
Even learning is teaching as you're teaching.
Yeah, I think of myself more as a facilitator and a coach than a teacher, but yeah, sure. I mean, on either side of it, I'm seeing it, I'm in the mix, I'm part of it. Yeah, it's exciting to be in a profession that's all about growth and development. And while sometimes it's about growing the company, it's also never just about growing the company, because it's about growing people. And by growing people, we grow the company.
Right.
The company doesn't grow without growing people. So everything I do is all about people. And it's funny, some people say to me, but I thought you work with companies, don't you? But yeah, I do, but it's people in the companies. I don't coach dogs. I don't train cats and horses. I work with people. It's always, 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 no matter what, about the people.
Do you deal with people who aren't at the top? Because there could be some value to all of this. Is a salesperson, a successful salesperson who's, needs to maybe find their way. How do they work with their team better? If they're a manager, or even just other salespeople, or other smaller type of companies and businesses, maybe it's wait staff. Who knows? Do you go into that, or is that something that
Yeah, in a corporate context, I typically work with the board members, the management team, and the next level, and then we get into execution of projects. There are teams below that in the hierarchy of a company that get my support in terms of team management and leadership. And then individuals hire me. Sometimes the company pays, sometimes they pay themselves because they're looking to be effective at a project, or get promoted, or negotiate a raise, or work out a challenge with an employee or supervisor. So it's all fair game. People are people. It's all valid. I just want to see people succeed and have wonderful lives. And
you talked about the success where someone comes in and they've gotten what they wanted out of it. But in essence, when someone comes to you, there's other people involved that you're working with. So is it, we all decide we should come to you, or sometimes someone comes to you and says, hey, we got problems, and now other people are involved?
Yeah, I'm feeling guilty because I haven't used this word yet, but I've been saying it over and over. It depends.
Yeah,
I get it all. Sometimes it's a COO or a HR director or something that says, hey, we need you. We're going to introduce you to the CEO. Sometimes I'm introduced to a CEO by another CEO, or a trusted advisor, lawyer, accountant, headhunter, etc. Sometimes a family member comes to me that's complaining about another family member. And then we need to get some little group of the family together just to decide to move forward. That's another possibility.
Is it intervention like ever?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
People blindsided, like, I didn't see this coming. And now
you mean like that? I'm sorry. No, that's not my style.
Yeah.
Although sometimes that happens.
Right.
We had a general manager that was sometimes genius and sometimes out of it, and we couldn't figure out why. So we had a small, very small, intimate conversation with a few of us and learned that he was addicted to painkillers.
Yeah.
So we got him into rehab, and he came back and he was better. So that was an intervention of a sort. But
when I say intervention, I also mean, does the CEO come to you and say, we need problems with the issue? And then when you come to the COO and the management team and the board, that they're really sort of blindsided by it in that type, not necessarily we need to have an intervention because someone's doing this and we got to get that.
No, because I'm meticulous about setup.
Yeah.
And making sure that people are prepared for what's next as best as possible. Creating alignment, creating safety, creating support and preparation for what's next is super, super important to me. And at the same time, we're human beings and we never know what's going to happen next, really. I mean, I make my plans and my scenarios, and then things go how they go. And hopefully preparation helps and skills help. I think what you're pointing to is that's when presence really matters. Can we be present, really aware, open, aware of ourselves, aware of what's happening in the room with each other, speaking about the same?
Yeah.
So that we can better navigate what's occurring in the moment to moment to moment to moment, such as life, right?
My grandma used to always love to say, we make plans and God laughs. That was her saying. You say presence. I'm surprised I didn't even mention this up until now. But how much of this is you in person with who you're working with?
Yeah, great. I mostly like to work with groups in person. And maybe after I know a group very, very well, we can be effective on Zoom. With one-on-one coaching, I do a ton on Zoom, very effective with people all over the world. There's certain things that I can't do. Like if you look on the video, you'll see me doing some Aikido and karate exercises with people to move through conflict and emotions. But I find Zoom exceedingly effective, and I'm happy to get on a plane and work with a team. And there's just something magical about being together that, as good as Zoom is and all the tools and the apps that we're seeing on the right side, it's not the same. And it's good, but it's not the same.
No, never the same. But sometimes it's what you have to do. Better than not, have the ability, especially through COVID and the pandemic, that led you to not be able to go in person. So you had to shift. You didn't just shut down and say, all right, we're not going to do this. Yeah. I saw the karate, and it's so interesting the way, I watch it in the movies. I did karate when I was really, really young, never really did a whole lot of it. But in the movies, when you watch like a Cobra Kai, there's lessons in all of that. Even as I'm watching Ted Lasso, right? There's so many good lessons in this through sport and physical activity. Maybe it could be distance running, whatever it is. I think we don't absorb that as much as just, hey, I want to go do karate. I want to go play soccer. And we don't think of that as much. But I think there's lessons everywhere in what we do.
There is. And in sports and in martial arts and dancing for that matter, and swimming, there's psycho-emotional changes that happen to us, whether or not we're aware.
But sometimes you could do that stuff wrong and still succeed. Now, can you run businesses and do things that are, it's hard to say right or wrong, but in that non-traditional, most people think that's not going to work and still succeed? Or would you try and just run with that? Or would you try and if it's working, would you try and run with that? Or would you try and say, I think it's better if you operate a different way?
I don't deal in the realm of right and wrong. I look at workability, and I look for what is their common commitment for, and what will work.
Yeah.
And what can we all commit to? And the commitment to workability is more important than the strategy. Because I don't want to be cliche, but a great strategy poorly implemented is pretty worthless.
Yeah.
And
what's the most important? Because some people lead with strategy. My friend Dave Wakeman always rails about strategy. What's the most important thing to start with? You're not starting with strategy.
Passion. Motivation, energy.
Yeah.
That spark that moves us forward, that has us want to get up and out of bed and pick up the phone and go to the meeting and get the group together and create the vision and invent the new project and go get the money and make the investment decisions. It's the tenacity, the determination, the spark. I've worked with fantastic visionary CEOs. I've worked with fantastic inventor CEOs that knew they needed a COO to make it happen. I've worked with people that just wanted to sit back and coach and guide and relied on their team to do everything. And that's fantastic. It's really, I look at workability. What's the situation? What's missing? And what do we need to do to make it work?
Passion's great. I have passion. It makes me a salesperson. It makes me much better at what I do. But a lot of businesses fail, and a lot of them have a lot of passion and belief in what they do. Sometimes people go too long when they should have left. Sometimes people stop when they probably should have pushed on a little bit more, and it could have been successful. From your thoughts, that's a very tough decision and thing to try and come up with. From my opinion, that's a tough thing. What's your opinion? People staying on too long because they're so passionate about it and maybe they can't see that it's not going to work, or others who maybe give up too early and if they would have pushed a little bit longer?
Yeah, all of it. And all of those are great opportunities for coaching.
Where We're big
Yeah.
on Mount Rushmore here on the Wolff Den. Can you give me a Mount Rushmore of companies that you think are just really well run, well managed, well run? They could be big, they could be small. Maybe we didn't even have to hear of them, but just off the top of your head, any companies that are really well run come to mind?
I know best the companies that I work with my clients, and I can't really talk about them that
No,
way.
not them. Just like, hey, you think Google is a really well run company. You think,
Yeah,
Nike.
that's a fun conversation, and sure, we're doing internet public media, but you can't really know what a company's like until you get into it. I remember
No, I
getting out
agree
of
with that. It's
you
just your
can't.
perception of
I
it.
remember, yeah, the perception doesn't mean anything, I guess is my point. I remember getting out of business school and going to Motorola and thinking, wow, 130,000 employees, and this place is a mess with all of its silos and uh, missing the mark on marketing. And I did work at Bristol Myers, and a very respected pharmaceutical company, and I saw the dysfunction. But that's what I look for as well. I look for the function and dysfunction, and I can find it anywhere.
But you can argue
What
that
really matters,
is,
again, what really matters is the workability.
but you
Can
can
the
argue that perception is some of the most important things because sometimes it doesn't matter what is, it matters what people perceive you to be as.
life
I
is
would argue that.
perception?
I don't necessarily agree with that because I'd rather have it the other way. But that's just the reality that we live in is what people think of you isn't necessarily what is.
Yeah, sure. And you're bringing in the topic of absolute versus perceptual reality, which we could do a whole session on that.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating topic for me.
If you mentioned wanting to have a family business, let's say you were going to start a family business today and it can't be results management group. It's got to be something totally new. You have an idea of what would be a fun, good idea, a good thing to get into? Is it a restaurant? Is it, do you have
I
an
love what
idea?
I love what I do. And uh, I don't know, marrying my future business partner is probably super exciting to me.
And that would be in results management.
Yeah, or maybe we change the name to something that we both could
I'm
align
saying
to
do what
better.
you're doing. It wouldn't be maybe something. I mean, you might marry someone that's not for them, or is that maybe nothing you would do? I don't know. That could be
Yeah,
part of it.
it pains me to not be able to answer your questions the way that you're asking them, but I'm so in love with what I'm doing right now.
That's
And
great. I like it.
while I could imagine in concept renaming the company because this is 20 some years old, it suits me for now. And I really couldn't imagine doing anything else. And
I think you could
yeah,
do something. I mean, you could do something else while
I
you're doing
could.
while you're
Yeah.
doing that. I'm saying if you opened up a franchise of whatever, I don't know, ices, or I don't, who
Yeah,
knows?
not for me, but
Okay.
I appreciate
No,
the
that's
question and the opportunity to look at it and confirm for myself
no, that's good
how
to know
crazy
also.
in love with how crazy I love how crazy in love I am with what I do. And when I say what I do, what I mean is working with people to love themselves and love each other, to work effectively and have satisfying family relationships and businesses and careers and passions. That's
I'm
what I love.
I'm crazy in love with Ticket Time Machine is doing. I don't love everything about what we have to do and what I have to do, but that's all part of it.
Yeah.
And what drives me and moves me and motivates me is the love of what Ticket Time Machine is doing and offering. And but I'm also newer, right? When I have a team of below me, and then my role becomes different, I probably will have maybe a little bit more of a love and appreciation of everything that I'm actually doing. And it's okay to not love everything you do. I mean, that's just the way life works, right?
Yeah.
I think we're going to let you
Couldn't
out of
agree
the Wolff
more.
Den with the same question that everybody gets. You can spend 24 hours with anybody in the world. They have to be alive. You can't be related to them. Who would you like to spend time with, and what would you guys do?
It's a tease.
We do outreach. We've had some things that probably we'll never be able to get, but I think we have some answers that we will be able to accommodate. Obviously, as you get more wealthy and important and powerful with what you do, just anyone else that could be a celebrity. It could just be someone you've respected or heard before, a writer? Nothing? What's the
I'm
first
sorry,
name
I
that comes out of your
failed.
mind?
I'd want to bring my parents back to life and
Oh, we all would. Yeah, I know that.
spend time with my brothers and my nieces and my cousins and my aunt, all of us together again.
That's why I use that, because that's an answer that we all would do. I'd love to bring my father
It's
back,
really all that matters.
my grandma.
Everything else is nonsense.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time here. Resultsmanagementgroup.com. Find Matthew on LinkedIn. If you go to the website and you hit the family button, you'll get a little bit more information. There's very good videos that actually shows you Matthew in action, and we'll show you what he does and see exactly all the stuff we've been talking about here. Always better to see it in action than just to talk about it. So reach out to Matthew, check out the website. Appreciate your time. And next time we'll hit into all these other topics, and maybe we'll get you to play some music. We didn't even get to talk about music. But,
yeah, YouTube/Matthew Levy. You could check out the music.
There you go. YouTube/Matthew Levy. Check out his musical talents.
Matt, this was a pleasure. Thank you for encouraging me to do this with you.
Yeah, of course. We
really
love
fun
to have people like yourself on who are doing good and helping people. We got more episodes next week, but have a great weekend. Do something fun. Do something good. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks much. Yeah, great.